All right, there it is. Hey, everybody, happy Monday. Welcome back to another Parents Helping Parents live stream. Thanks for being here. You could be doing lots of different things on a Monday night, including Monday Night Football, now that that's started. But you're not. You're here joining us, so we greatly appreciate it. Hey, I'm going to remind you a couple of times to do this for me, but if you're watching live on Facebook right now, reach over, click the share button to share this video to your page. That's the quickest and fastest way to help us reach more people with the message of hope that we have tonight. And it's easy and it's free and it doesn't cost us anything. So help us get the word out and make sure you reach over and you share that. So if you're not familiar with Parents Helping Parents, we're an Oklahoma-based nonprofit organization founded by parents, primarily run by parents, with the mission of sharing our experience, connecting people with resources, and providing education to parents who have a child any age that might be struggling with a substance use disorder. So if you're a parent and you find yourself having a young person that's struggling, you are in the right spot watching the right video. So hopefully what we've got for you tonight will be useful and helpful. I'm sure it will. A couple of ways to stay connected with Parents Helping Parents. Maybe you're catching this on YouTube. Maybe you're watching it on a friend's feed because they shared the video. We want to make sure that you can stay in touch with us so that you know about all the cool, wonderful things that we're up to. You can do that at our Facebook page, at Parents Helping Parents Inc. on Facebook, or you can check us out on the website, www.parentshelpingparents.info. A couple of cool things that I want to remind people about that are kind of new. We have started, in addition to our flagship Facebook page, we are running and have started a secondary Facebook page called My Child Struggles with Addiction. I'm going to repeat that because I butchered it. At My Child Struggles with Addiction. So this is a Facebook page just to help parents connect with one another and provide mutual support. It's a way for us to continue to share resources and share articles with parents who might be finding themselves in a tough spot, but it's primarily an online support group for people to stay connected and to check in with each other. So go to that page. It's a private closed group, so you have to answer a few questions and the administrator will approve you and let you in, but it can be a valuable resource for you. The other thing that I want to remind everybody of is our Hopeful Horizons fundraising event that is going to be coming up in the spring. It's April 27th, 2023 at the Will Rogers Theater Event Center here in Oklahoma City. If you've never been to that venue, it's awesome. It's on historic Western and a really cool part of town. Excuse me. So the doors will open at 6. The event's at 6:30. You're not going to want to miss it. We've got an awesome speaker lined up who's going to be coming in and who's going to be sharing some things. I'm reading over there we go, Tiffany Jenkins, who you guys will recognize. She's a comedian and a wife and a mom and an author, and has been on the Today Show and Good Morning America and lots of different places, sharing her recovery story in a way that's engaging and fun, but also helping people get hope, find resources, hear all that kind of good stuff. So that's going to be a great event. You can find information on how to buy tickets both on our Facebook page and on our website. So both of those things coming up. So if you're watching the video tonight, you're watching us live and you want to interact, we really want to hear your questions. I was just talking to Albert and Christa a few minutes ago, and they really are open to questions coming in as they speak and as they talk. So there's 2 ways that you can do that. If you want to ask questions and you want to chat with us in the Facebook chat, in the comment section, that's great. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be monitoring that, taking a look at that. But please remember that that's the internet and that will be here forever. Thousands of years from now, when the monkey people are digging through the ruins of humanity, they are going to find your comment attached to this video on a server somewhere, right? So just remember it's on the internet, so it's there. We can't take it down. We can't remove it. If you're concerned about that, maybe you want to protect your anonymity. Maybe this is the first time you've ever engaged in a conversation about addiction and you're a little nervous because you're not quite sure how that's going to go. We've got a private way that you can reach out and ask questions. We've got a private text line that you can send those questions to anonymously. I'm the only person that gets those messages. I delete them at the end of every live stream. The phone number for that is in the title of this video on Facebook. So 2 different ways there to interact. So here's my second and final reminder. If you're watching live on Facebook, reach over, click the like button, comment, share, primarily share to your newsfeed because it helps us exponentially reach more people with the information that we've got tonight. So I'm excited about the speakers that we have tonight. This is a topic that I think is very relevant and that a lot of us maybe find ourselves lacking education in and needing more information and more resources in. So I've invited my good friend Albert and a friend and colleague of his, Christa, is going to join him. I am going to go ahead and turn that over to them for them to introduce themselves and talk about what they do and share their presentation with us. And then, like I said, if you've got questions along the way, great. If you've got questions that you want to ask towards the end, that's great too. So I'll turn that over for them and we'll hang out with their presentation for about the next half hour or so. You guys are up. Welcome to the party.
All right. Thank you so much, Derek. We appreciate that. Can everybody see the screen?
I can see it.
Perfect. All right. Cool. All right.
I'm trying to get out of my big screen so that I can still see the Facebook view. Yeah, Facebook can see it too. You guys are good to go.
Perfect. All right. So we are super excited to be presenting today on this topic. This is a topic that is very near and dear to our hearts. It really is at the core of what we do in all our interactions with our clients and even out in our community. And so do you have any other words you want to share real quick before we jump into it?
No, yeah, thanks again, Derek, for having us, and thank you guys for being here. Parents helping parents is a great, I love the idea of that support. And as a mom, I know that whenever our kids are going through anything, it's really difficult. So I just want to say thanks for being here and hi.
All right, so the title of this is 2SL LGBTQIA plus considerations in supporting recovery. And so let's move right in. So here's a little overview of what we're going to cover. We're going to introduce ourselves so you know who's talking to you. We're going to look at affirming care, pronouns, conversion therapy, stats and effects of rejection, and some resources that can help you. And before we get started, I also want to preface that this is a very important topic because it is a topic where we have to lend ourselves to a little bit of vulnerability. I think especially in a state with Oklahoma, there are a lot of challenges that are very unique to the community. And you may hear us reference the community in a few different ways. We may call it the queer community, the LGBTQ plus community, 2S LGBTQIA plus community. And so just know that these terms are all terms that we will probably use interchangeably, but we're not going to go too much into language today because I think that there is a lot of terms and language that we could spend time on, but there's really a lot more about recovery that we really want to focus on. So if anyone does have any questions you're not comfortable asking, you can definitely reach out to us later, and we are very open to answering any question. No question is wrong. I know sometimes it's scary to not know who to ask questions that you may not feel comfortable asking, and so we really want to allow that space for you to have those questions. All right. So who am I? I'm Albert Rios. My pronouns are he, him, his, and él. I'm a substance use. I have a substance use counseling background. And I also have an emphasis in mental health. I've been working in the MAT setting, so that's harm reduction. I have a lot of experience in medication-assisted treatment. So we use buprenorphine, methadone, and I also just have a passion for working with the community. I'm a huge advocate for the community, and I am a therapist in private practice, and I am open, and I'm proud to share that with everyone and anyone that asks.
I'm Christa Harrison. My pronouns are she or they, either one are fine. I have over 13 years working as a LADC MH in various settings. I've been a previous licensing supervisor for other therapists, as well as a clinical supervisor. And at one point I was a trainer of youth mental health first aid. So that was going to different schools in Oklahoma to train school staff, teachers, principals, superintendents, all of that. An 8-hour training in mental health first aid for youth. So I also have a passion for working with the queer community. I'm out, my website, my marketing is intentional about that for the purpose of making people feel safe who are in the community. Because when you're in the community, it can be very difficult to know who's safe, because a lot of people will say they are, and a lot of people have experiences that are different than that. So yeah, that's a little of our, we're both in private practice and we both work as therapists. And we actually have a networking event we started together as well, which is queer providers and allies networking every month. So we're trying to get the people in the community together to find all these safe places to refer to and know who's out there.
Right. So we're going to look at evidence-based care as a gold standard for all. And so when a lot of people enter any type of counseling, we look at evidence-based practices because we know evidence does show results. And so when you consider what evidence-based practice it does for the individual, it really helps them achieve progress, achieve change. And so when we think about recovery for the LGBTQ community, we know that everyone deserves evidence-based care. And you know, that doesn't matter if you're part of the community or outside of the community, anyone going into any type of counseling deserves it. And so all human beings have an intrinsic need for human love, the best interest of those served. So when we do as providers provide service to our individual clients, our goal should be to provide them that best care, to provide them the care that we would provide for any client and hold it to that gold standard. Always, treatment should be timely, it should be appropriate, evidence-based practices. When we see that these components of treatment are used, we notice that the outcomes improve. And usually a lot of times what that looks like, especially when working with this community, is that we see that people are no longer displaying suicidal ideation, there's no more harm or self-harm. And so that is why it is at the root of it all that we do provide the best quality of care and really go for that gold standard, because we are working with a community that has a lot of trauma and has a lot of pain. And so we want to make sure that we are addressing the trauma in a very important way, and that we're putting that at the focus of treatment instead of contributing to that trauma or creating more trauma and distress to the individual.
Yeah, as far as the history of therapy goes, there's been a lot of just go with your gut over the years. And as things have progressed, we've learned that evidence-based care is the gold standard because there is evidence behind it working. And that's what we're saying when we're talking about evidence-based care. It's the type of care that we have evidence to show that it actually supports the clients and that they do better. And we still have therapists out there that, you know, go from all different angles. But it is very well known in the community that evidence-based care is going to be the best care and going to give the best possible outcomes. So I'm going to read a couple of quotes that we have. We've got a lot of this stuff from different resources and stats, but lesbian, gay, bisexual, and other sexual orientations are normal variations of human sexuality and are not mental disorders. Transgender, non-binary, and other gender identities are normal variation of human gender and not mental disorders. I'll add to that intersex, people who are born intersex, that is one example of a variation. And it really does come with a spectrum. And so people are born all kinds of different ways. A lot of times people think it's just so simple in one way, but they just haven't had the understanding and knowledge. We have as many people born intersex as we do with red hair. So it is very common that somebody will have an X and Y chromosome and multiple things going on in their body that are linked to both male and female. And whether or not you know that you know somebody, you may know somebody. And a lot of times they were forced to have surgeries at birth based on whatever a doctor decided, or sometimes a parent decided, most of the time what a doctor decided. And so there are all these different variations. We are not simple. We are not simple people. And so in the past, we have had DSMs, we've had pathologizing of these things, but that's history. They've been corrected, they have been updated. They're not mental disorders. These are just normal variations of being a human.
And so we really want to look at what are some important protective factors when we work with this community. How do we keep them anchored in safety and provide that safe community, and what it does for the individual? Support, acceptance, and affirming spaces from families, providers, friends, and leaders help protect against depression, suicidal behavior, and substance use. And so that's very important if you look at those different interactions. So, you know, we may have a family that is accepting and supportive, but they may go to school and they might be in an environment where the school is not accepting. There may be a book ban where like books about who these individuals are not allowed. They're illegal on school property. And so they might even go to a church that's not affirming and is actively telling them or preaching against who they are. And so it's really important to look at those different layers of community. And so sometimes it goes beyond just the household. And so we really want to look at how do we create or identify these people that are going to help nurture your children and make sure that they're not being demonized or made to feel like they're not important, they're not valuable, or they don't have the same rights. You know, one of my friends is an activist. She said that the moment she realized that her straight son had more rights than her gay son really just broke her heart, you know, knowing that there was that difference between her two children, and not maybe for her, but for the world that they navigate. And so really identifying those health providers who are going to affirm your child, who is going to really take into consideration their health history as an LGBTQ individual. Those are very important things to take into consideration. So again, when you're looking at recovery, you want to have these professionals who are trained and are going to help normalize your child instead of make them feel like they are not normal. And so the goal is unconditional positive regard and no judgment. You know, last thing you want is your child who may be experiencing anxiety or some type of depression going to see a therapist who is going to judge them or tell them, well, you're going to go to hell, or you should try to change your orientation. And so when those messages are sent to individuals in the community, they are very damaging. And so just kind of like unconditional love, when you say you unconditionally love your child, it means you love them no matter what, and you're going to be there for them. And so same thing with a therapist who's going to work with them. You want someone that's going to help navigate their recovery instead of deter it by judging them and making them feel worse about themselves. Also, you want to promote self-esteem, social support, overall health experience for queer youth. Feeling seen makes people feel understood. So when people are validated, they feel worthy, they feel understood because they know that someone understands who they are and why that part of their identity is so important. And sometimes when these individuals come to therapy, just knowing that their therapist understands them and they don't have to explain, well, you know, who they are, who they're attracted to, allows them to really work on other things that are maybe not even related to their orientation or their identity that they may just want to process.
So what is an LGBTQ affirming therapist? There are a lot of people who say they are. You'll see it on Psychology Today, left and right. Everybody says they're affirming for the LGBT community. And but what does it really mean? What is it if you're truly an affirming therapist? Well, they would have to have respect for the LGBTQIA plus identities, right? They have to understand how to be respectful, how to show that respect, how to be there without coming across with their bias and judgment. They must have a working knowledge of the identities and common problems in the community. They have to have some understanding, right? They need to be able to provide information on local resources. That does make it more comfortable to process and discuss any problems. For therapy to work, for recovery to work, people need to be able to be real. And if they don't feel safe being real, they're not going to get very far. I'm no good as a therapist if my client's not comfortable with me. They say one of the biggest determinants of how therapy, if it helps, how it helps, is the relationship with the therapist. So I've had so many clients come in and discuss why they quit therapy years ago and never were going to come back and didn't think they would come back. And there's a lot of people out there who haven't came back because they had an experience with somebody who was not affirming, and they may not have been outright hateful, but I think we all know, whether we're in the queer community, whether we have another kind of identity that, we just feel a little bit different in some way. And if somebody just doesn't feel safe to share that with or to be open with, we're just not going to be able to be really open. And in therapy and in recovery areas, it's really difficult to get anywhere if we can't be real. If we can't get to the part where we're authentic and real, it's hard to heal and progress. So for you guys being here as parents who are helping other parents, dealing with kids who you love, going through problems, one of the biggest things you can do to support their recovery is honor who they are and let them be who they are. Because whenever you have that moment, whenever you really allow that, it just changes the dynamic completely. No matter how much a parent loves their kid, if they don't feel accepted, it's still a different kind of relationship. So I absolutely recommend an affirming therapist. And we'll talk more about why. Therapist or provider, it could be depending on what. Yeah, any kind of provider.
Right. And so we're going to, when we introduced ourselves earlier, we introduced ourselves using our pronouns. And I think for some people, it's still kind of a new concept. They don't know why people have done it. And it's okay if you're not sure why, but people seem to have a huge aversion to using pronouns. And so we typically use pronouns throughout the day regularly. I think that we use them more than we are aware of. And so pronouns may help express your gender identity, but not always. You want to always check in with others about their pronouns, allow them to tell you their pronouns instead of assuming. So if you see someone who may appear to present more masculine, you don't want to automatically assume, okay, he, him. You want to allow them to tell you. If they're comfortable, they will share with you what their pronouns are. And a good thing that I always say is if you don't know, just use their name. You can't go wrong with using someone's name. If I say my name is Albert and you're not sure if I identify as he or her or they, just use Albert. And chances are, if I'm comfortable enough, I will let you know what my pronouns are. And for us that may be more passing, we use our pronouns to help let others know that it's safe to use their pronouns. So when we share our pronouns, we're sending a message to those that don't know if they can use their pronouns or it's not safe to use their pronouns, that they can use it with us because we understand and it's okay. So, and we don't say preferred pronouns, they're essential. This is who that individual is. And so if you have a child who says, Mom, Dad, I go by they, them, then we acknowledge that. It's who they are. And so practicing that is very important, and trying to use language that's a little more inclusive. I think that we get stuck in a binary, and I know I've done it. I'm talking about it right now, but I've actively tried so hard instead of saying, hey guys, how's everyone doing? I just gendered everyone guys. And so maybe using things like in Oklahoma is so proper, y'all, and I've been trying to use that more. Hey y'all, hey everyone. Instead of saying boyfriend or girlfriend, wife or husband, partner. What's their partner? Instead of saying he or she, folks, or person, instead of saying man or woman. And here's the reality. You may make a mistake. You may not get it right. You may forget, and it's okay. What we want is that you correct yourself and move on. You don't want to you want to acknowledge what you said and that you are aware that you're going to do better. but we all make mistakes, and you know, and I will admit I've done it before, and I've I've corrected it and I've moved on. And so we just have to be more aware, create the space for people to tell you what their pronouns are. And if they don't feel comfortable telling you, they probably aren't comfortable telling you. So we have to be okay with that as well.
Mhm. Yeah, so we want to touch on the harm of conversion therapy. Reparative, sometimes it's been called reparative therapy or conversion therapy. It's a very dangerous practice that targets LGBTQ youth and seeks to change their sexual or gender identity. These practices are rejected and not practiced by mainstream medical or mental health organizations, haven't been for years. Here on the screen is some names of some of these places, like sexual orientation change efforts, sexual attraction, fluidity, exploration and therapy, safety. If you notice that one particular, it doesn't necessarily say, hey, this is conversion therapy and we're going to try to, you know, shame your kid into changing who they are. But that is one of the places. And so if you want to look at some of these, there's a list right here. But conversion therapy has done so much harm. One of the things I focus on in therapy is I focus and specialize in PTSD, and I work with a lot of trauma. And conversion therapy is traumatic. And there's evidence of that. There's lots and lots and lots of evidence of that. That's why the medical associations don't support it. That's why the mental health organizations don't support it, because it has made things worse, not better. And when we're talking about our kids dealing with substance abuse issues, we don't want them to have extra trauma. We don't want them to go deeper into the hole. We want them to get better. We want them to feel better and to improve. And so this is important. This is very important. Conversion therapy is an absolute traumatic, harmful experience. And there's just no other way to put it.
And we see a lot of people who've gone through it that come out, or you know, or even are huge proponents for it, and they come out and they say, you know what, I bought the snake oil and it doesn't work. It absolutely does not work. And you know, the way that I put it for most people is, you know, and most of you that identify straight, if someone took you to a counselor that kept pushing, and this is very light, I say pushing maybe a homosexual lifestyle, you wouldn't change who you are. And some of these tactics that are used in conversion therapy are way more harmful than just convincing them. I mean, we're talking about serious damage that, you know, is very hurtful, and some places have had physical pain, just numerous things that are very awful. And like Christa said, no real therapist that has an ethical responsibility to any board would be practicing that. It's not in our ethics. Our ethics are do no harm, and conversion therapy is literally the opposite of that. It causes harm. And there's so much research and correlation between people committing suicide, higher rates of depression, and so much harm to the community. So let's see. And so talking about the effects of that rejection, there higher levels of rejection in youth are correlated with 8.4 times more likely to them reporting having suicide, having attempted suicide, 5.9 times more likely to report high levels of depression, 3.4 times more likely to use illegal drugs. We see higher rates of substance use and suicidality are partly explained by experiences of discrimination, victimization, and higher rates of depressive symptoms reported by transgender and gender diverse adolescents.
Here's some stats that you can see on glad.org if you want to yourself, but 698,000 LGBTQ adults in the US have received conversion therapy, including about half of them who received it as adolescents. Some of them are our clients, and that is a deep wound. 20,000 LGBTQ youth ages 13 through 17 will receive conversion therapy from a licensed healthcare professional before they reach the age of 18 in the 41 states that currently don't ban the practice. 6,000 LGBTQ youth ages 13 through 17 who live in the US that ban conversion therapy would have received such therapy from a licensed healthcare professional before age 18 if their state had not banned the practice. 57,000 youth across all states will receive conversion therapy from religious and spiritual advisors before they reach the age of 18. Only 14 out of 50 states and municipalities have passed laws protecting LGBTQ plus youth from conversion therapy. In Oklahoma, it is not one, and it is still very prevalent out there. People can find it. But if you want your child to be able to recover from substance abuse, inflicting more trauma is not a good way to get there. Protecting them from trauma absolutely is. And so knowing about what that is and why to stay away from it can be really helpful.
And so talking about substance use, so not until recent have we really seen a lot of data being collected in specific regards to sexual orientation and gender identification. In 2018, the National Survey on Drug Use and Health suggests substance use patterns reported by sexual minority adults are higher compared to those reported by heterosexual adults, which about 37.6% of sexual minority adults 18 and older reported past year of marijuana use, a past year of opioid use, misuse, which could be illicit, could be prescription, higher with 9% of sexual minority adults age 18 or older. 9% of sexual minority adults 26 or older reported past year misuse of prescription opioids. And we have seen a significant decline in past year prescription opioid misuse among the sexual minority.
As far as vaping and tobacco products, these are just some stats we see. LGBT individuals show elevated rates of smoking e-cigarettes. Among LGBT adults, bisexual women report greater use of trying e-cigarettes compared to heterosexual women, and greater dual use of tobacco cigarettes and e-cigarettes compared to both lesbian and heterosexual women. Bisexual men were more likely to report e-cigarette use compared to heterosexual men. Don't really know what that means, but that's just the interesting information that is what's collected so far.
Yeah, and I think that, the interesting thing is, so we've talked about trauma, we've talked about, even for someone that may grow up and so I want to make this point too, like even someone that grows up in a home where they're accepted, they still may face other traumas when you're navigating their school, just navigating the world, and even with like sometimes legislation that is actively against who they are. And so we do see that substance use is a very accessible coping mechanism. And so we do see this higher rates in the LGBTQ community because, that's one of the ways they've been coping. And so that can be either people who've been kicked out of their homes too, may not have anywhere to go. And so their coping is using substances. So we do see a greater risk for people in our community when they do not have an adequate support system. And that could look like, again, family, friends, school, and just health providers as well. And so that's why it is very important for health providers to be aware of stressors and dangers to the individuals.
So talking about comorbidities with substance use disorder. When treatment centers offer LGBT specialized groups, when they offer the specialized groups for the community, they show better outcomes than those who don't. Problem is we only have like 7.4% programs that offer specific services. So best case scenario is to have a specific group. If you have a certain, if you're going inpatient, if there's a place that's specific for LGBT, all these things are important, but they're not very readily available. Current research suggests that treatment should address unique factors in these patients' lives, such as homophobia, transphobia, family problems, violence, social isolation, psychiatric disorders prevalent due to greater odds of frequent mental distress and depression. All those things that happen just increase any kind of psychiatric issue. There's a greater risk of harassment and violence for anyone who is queer. Stressors and sexual minorities are increased risk for various behavioral health issues. A lot of times we see behavioral health issues as a result of mistreatment and lack of safety and support. Transgender children and adolescents have higher levels of depression, suicidality, self-harm, and eating disorder.
So, social challenges for LGBTQ addiction treatment and recovery. In 2013, a study was done of gay and lesbian alumni from various treatment programs. And these are some areas that were identified. A separate unit or facility welcoming to sexual minorities and LGBTQ allies, safe and supportive treatment milieu, including LGBTQ and or affirming staff, and specialized treatment modalities for different substances and or addictions. And so these are very important areas to focus on when in treatment. And I don't think that in Oklahoma, there's necessarily a residential program that focuses on this community. I know there's other states that do have treatment facilities that are specific to the LGBTQ community. And so I think it's an area where we need to do better. We have gender specific treatment facilities, but even in Oklahoma, I feel like those are very few. So it's important to keep into consideration when seeking out programs who specialize and provide services catered directly to the individual. Transgender individuals face social rejection or violence, transphobia, and stigma, and representative positive trans-friendly treatment. Unsurprisingly, the two negative themes were associated with premature discharge from treatment, and while patients report inclusiveness reported a much more positive overall treatment experience, which obviously inclusiveness and affirming services do lend to a more positive outcome, more success for the individual, because they are being taken, the whole individual is being included instead of just parts of the individual.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to share a few stories that we experienced or hear, just to give you some ideas of what happens behind the scenes. I've had multiple clients come in and tell me stories about a therapist they went through that went really south. And like I said earlier, sometimes they don't come back. Sometimes they come back really late. Sometimes they come back really late and scared, and it takes a while. Sometimes they choose me for that reason because I'm out, and so they feel like, okay, this isn't going to be somebody who knows me again. I had one client who came in and said that she and a partner wanted to go to couples therapy, and they went to somebody who advertised that they work with the LGBT community and were affirming. And so they went in the very first session, the therapist said, okay, so which one of you is the guy? And that's not affirming. They knew immediately this person didn't know what they were doing, didn't know anything about them, and was just already saying things that were just, they knew they weren't going to get help there. And so they bonded on the way home from couples therapies, thinking, well, we're not going back to therapy, but that's not a good thing. You know, if we need to have therapy, if we need couples therapy, we need a safe place to do it with someone who can help, who's not going to immediately step all over our toes and indicate that they don't have a clue what it's like to be affirming. I had a client whose family member, young teenage family member was gay, but he hadn't came out yet. And he had a therapist. He'd felt comfortable with the therapist and decided not to come out with the therapist, but instead withdrew. He didn't trust him because he had found out that and heard that his sibling had been told by the therapist that they are not whatever queer form they were using. And this other kid wasn't even suggesting they were. There was no reason for that other than the parent came in and said, I'm worried that my kid's saying they're this for this. They weren't even saying it. There wasn't even an argument. But the kid who was gay in the house recognized real quick that it wasn't safe. Like, if the first thing you're going to say is you're not, whatever, rather than ask. That's not a good thing. That's not something a therapist should be doing, is telling you what you are as far as your sexuality or your gender identity. And did you have some stories that there's so many?
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of just go on the other side of that and share a positive story that I had with one of my clients. So they came to me, they were referred, and it was a couple. They were very nervous about meeting with me. Again, they've met other therapists in Oklahoma that claim they're affirming, put it on their profile, but really they get there and it's some of these stories that Christa shared. And sitting in my office, observing how I have it set up. I have some rainbow Legos. I have like a rainbow stickers and things that really made them feel at ease. And so as professionals, those are some of the things we can do to show our clients, hey, I'm comfortable being out. Maybe you're not. But when you are ready, this is a space for you to talk about that. And so I think that things like using our pronouns, introducing ourselves with pronouns, really create that space for our clients to know that they have individuals who really are allowing them to explore who they are. Because, the thing with pronouns, and I think I forgot to mention this earlier, was it's a journey. Sometimes you may have a child who says, hey, mom, dad, I want to go by they, them, and maybe find out that they don't like the pronouns. It doesn't feel right. So they might go with he, they. And so really allowing your child to be curious and explore their identity, their orientation, their expression is so important. And if it's something that you don't know how to be supportive, it's okay to seek therapy to say, how can I work through this and be there for my child? Because we know that research shows that affirming parents, by using the proper pronouns, by allowing their child to explore who they are, that's a form of suicide prevention. Because if you don't, that causes distress to your child, and you don't know what other stressors, depression, anxiety, what's going on with the individual. And so really finding therapists that allow, and they don't have to be, your therapist does not have to be in the queer community, but they have to understand the uniqueness to the community and all the things that Christa mentioned earlier, because it is important to acknowledge that and allow the individual to explore that, knowing that the therapist is not going to judge them for who they are.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that, like as a therapist who does work with PTSD, and I have some things for the student that I do that is powerful and amazing, and I see people recover from PTSD in ways I didn't think it was possible. But to find out they have PTSD, that they usually don't come in saying I have PTSD. I mean, I know there's some veterans and there's some people who have more of an understanding, but generally when somebody comes into the office with PTSD, and a lot of people have it, a lot of people have that, it's just a post-traumatic thing, and more children have it than veterans. So PTSD is common, trauma is the underlier, and there are amazing treatment things that are actually so much simpler than we ever knew, and evidence-based and amazing. But first, the client has to come in and be like real, because they don't come in knowing that they have trauma. They just say, no, I don't have trauma. My stuff's not like the other person's, right? Or yeah, I had that one thing, but it's not like that. I'm not like, it's not trauma, it's not PTSD. And so we don't just jump in and say, oh, you have PTSD, it's time to fix it. That's not how therapy works. The client has to be able to open up and be real and feel comfortable and share what they want to share. But a lot of times, if they feel comfortable, and that's the one thing that I'm lucky enough to get to see. I get to see people come in and say, I finally feel like I have somebody I can really be open with, because that last thing, man, it was freaky, but I'm feeling safer here. So they start to share, and then in time we're like, okay, here's some tools for this. Here, if there's PTSD, we can kind of look at it. If there's trauma recovery that's not PTSD, but just trauma recovery, we can look at it. But they don't, clients, people, humans, we don't open up if we don't feel safe. So being really intentional intentional about making sure the providers are affirming is so important. So if you have a kiddo who says, I don't like my therapist, or I don't like my treatment center, they don't feel like they care about me, or something doesn't feel right. My suggestion is absolutely honor that and don't question it. Okay, well, let's find one that is. Let's find one that feels good to you, because that is going to be their best shot at success, is if they feel safe to be real, because we can't use our therapy tools if they're not sharing and being open.
Right.
And they're not going to share and be open if they don't feel safe.
All right, so here are some resources, local resources to Oklahoma. So Cedar Ridge has the NEST program. It's a residential treatment program for adolescent youth. The Diversity Center of Oklahoma has all types of services, all ages. I think they even have like health screening, counseling, and a bunch of other services.
Medical, community support type stuff.
Support groups. Roy G. Biv Clinic at OU with Dr. Lawless is a really good program. She works primarily with transgender youth and super knowledgeable, great person. Sante Center for Healing is a residential treatment program. It's in Texas.
It is in Texas.
And they work with all ages, right? Or is it adolescents?
I know they work with the adults.
Adults,
I'm
okay.
not actually sure about the ages, but they are a safe place, and they focus on evidence-based, and they have a lot of ability to work with religious trauma. And a lot of times that is something that we deal with in the queer community and need to be able to deal with. And so it's very important if you're going inpatient to feel safe. It's very important. So we have some more local resources if you want to just kind of look at the screen, but for BIPOC resources, Therapy for Black Girls. Therapy for Black Girls is to make mental health topics more relatable for Black girls and women. Therapy for Black Men, they recognize that Black men have experienced unique challenges and stigmatization. The Beam Collective, it's a group of people who are in healing professions such as therapy, teaching, yoga, law, psychology, and more, who are dedicated to creating accessibility for the healing of pain in Black individuals and communities. Therapy for Latinx, for those in the Latinx community to find identity-affirming mental health services. Therapy for Latinx provides resources to find a therapist, crisis hotlines, and other materials that are specific to the Latinx community.
And then the 2S LGBTQIA plus resources, Pride Counseling, they recognize that mental health issues occur at a disproportionately high rate to those who identify as LGBTQIA plus. Pride Counseling provides online counseling that is discreet, affordable, and convenient. The National Queer and Trans Therapist of Color Network, they recognize a need to develop skills and mental health related resources for those who are queer and trans people of color. And then Therapy Den, an online community of mental health professionals who believe in making the process of finding an appropriate therapist easy. And I will say that we mentioned psychology today, which there's nothing wrong with using psychology today, but if you want to specifically filter for affirming therapists, Therapy Den is very, very solid and has, I would say, allows therapists to post more genuine profiles so you kind of get a more of an idea of who they are, because that's important when you're looking for a therapist. You want to make sure you find someone that you connect with. So definitely check it out. And then financially affordable resources, Open Path Collective, a resource founded under the acknowledgement that therapeutic resources are needed regardless of ability to pay.
Here's some phone numbers, 988, if you haven't already been aware, there's a lifeline that is now open in Oklahoma. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline, the Trevor Project, the Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, and Transgender National Hotline, it's Trans Lifeline. I'll let you read the numbers and take down anything that you want to.
And I will say the 988 Lifeline, it rolled out recently, and it's a very important resource. Think of it like 911. Someone's in a crisis, you can call, you can get connected with resources, screening, They are very, very engaged in providing services to people that are in crises. And so I'm sure y'all have seen the billboards everywhere. They've been popping up a lot. And so here are just our sources that we cited for everything we used. And if you want to contact either of us, here's my phone number. Again, my name is Albert Rios. My phone number is 405-310-9401. And my private practice is called Good Hive Counseling. You can go to goodhivecounseling.com if you want to check me out, learn a little bit about me and what I do. I do only provide private pay services right now. And so I do have a few openings. I typically work with 18 and older. I have an adolescent right now that I'm working with. I'm willing to at least consult. So you can reach out to me, we can have a consultation and kind of figure out if I'm the right match or if I need to connect you with someone else.
And if you want to reach me, my phone number is 405-437-1588. And my website is evolutioncounselingokc.com. And you could also go on there and just send me an email if you wanted to. I really like connecting people with good resources. So I'm not really accessible for a lot of clients. I only see adults and I only in private pay, and my sliding scale slots are full, so I can be kind of pricey and not accessible for people who are wanting to use their insurance or struggling financially. However, I still love getting those calls or getting the emails to say, hey, do you know anyone else? Because I do. That's one of the reasons we have started the networking group each month, is to try to increase the names and the ability to say, yeah, actually, Derek is really great at this, or Albert is really great at this. Let me give you their information. They're actually, Albert doesn't take insurance, but for example, I can tell you, well, so-and-so is taking that insurance and is somebody I feel is safe, or somebody or I don't know these people, but here's this information and what I've heard. So, so feel free to reach out if you have somebody that you're looking to, and you're looking for resources, because I'd be happy to let you know what I know, or jump on the groups that I'm on Facebook with other professionals, or get in with my networking resources and see who's the better fit for whatever you're needing, because I do think it's important to find the right people for you.
And also, Christa did mention the Queer Providers and Allies networking. We meet once a month. So if you have any providers that that work with the queer community and you think they, someone we should connect with, please have them contact us. We want to grow our provider group beyond just therapists. Because again, like Christa said, our goal is to create a working list of providers that we have personally met, that we're comfortable saying, okay, Christa does A, B, C, and D. This is what her scale looks like. If she has openings, please reach out to her. Here's her phone number. So we will have that working list. We've been meeting, I think we've met twice now. And so really good group of providers that are very diverse.
Yeah, and we do know of places that have people doing a practicum so they can do it for free who are in the community. Mm-hmm. We do have information on all kinds of resources for different needs.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending this last hour with us. It's been a pleasure, and any questions that y'all have, please let us know. If you want to reach out to us, you can do that too.
Yeah, man, thank you guys so much. Just for all of the information, and obviously all of the diligent and hard work that you guys do in the queer community to support people who, quite frankly, have been marginalized for a number of years in Oklahoma and across the country. So just so that people that are watching know, whether you're watching later on YouTube or you're watching now live on Facebook, I did post both Facebook links to each of your practices in the Facebook chat. So if you're watching on YouTube, you didn't have a chance to write all that down, or you're watching now, you didn't have a chance to write all that down, go to our Facebook page, go to our videos, find this one, look in the comments section. You'll be able to find all of Albert and Christa's Facebook contact information there to their professional pages, not their personal pages. Wanted to be clear. So, somebody asked me that the other day. I was making a call to somebody that was in crisis. Somebody asked me to call them, and I said, make sure you let them know that it'll be probably calling from a blocked number. And they're like, why? And I was like, well, I don't particularly want people who are in mental health crisis having my cell phone, if I'm quite honest.
Yeah.
It's like, those are calls that I don't need at 3 a.m. when I'm trying to sleep.
So,
man, thank you guys so much. Hey, just real quick, because we're kind of wrapping up. I always ask people that are on, if you just had like a 30-second message of hope that you could deliver somebody who really might be struggling that catches this video, what would your 30-second message of hope for them be? It's not supposed to be a stumper. Sorry, guys.
No, I'll go. I just want to, life is hard and there's a lot of struggles, but there's also a lot of good people that are willing to put in the work and show up and support you in so many different ways. It's about finding those people in the community that do affirm you and love you in numerous different ways. So just know that you are truly not alone. And I mean that because I think that we hear that a lot. And honestly, some people don't mean it when they say it, but like you have to just find the right people that are willing to support you through everything.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Albert, Christa, thank you guys so much. Really, I appreciate you guys taking the time to be here. For everybody that's joined us live, thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing everybody again in 2 weeks on our next Monday night. You guys have a good night.
Thanks so much.
Bye.